آزادی بیان.
言论自由
Free speech.
And what I will be basically trying to do is, of course, I agree with Tim's proposition that freedom of speech is a most central and most important right. But I also believe that the context within which free speech happens and is experienced is also important. And I will try to speak about this context within which we do free speech. And I think that we can maybe, and that's what I will try to do today, is to try to distinguish between freedom of speech as a conservative project and the freedom of speech as an effort at liberating the individual from the shackles of inequality, with a more kind of, let's say, a more enlightenment perspective. And much of what I will share with you is based on my discussions at Oxford, and especially with my colleagues Rim Abu El-Fadl, Miriam Asfar, Mesna Katwa, and Uthman Ahmedani. And you already have realized they're all names of people with a Muslim background, and maybe that will come through in the discussion. So allow me to begin by stating that the societal and political context of any liberty, including, of course, the freedom of speech, is that of unequal power relations, whether in Turkey, in the UK, or elsewhere. Our capitalist societies are characterized by a wide range of inequalities, whether they're democratic, whether those countries are democratic and liberal as in the UK, semi-authoritarian and liberal as in Turkey, or dictatorial as in most of Turkey's eastern neighbors. To cite just a few such inequalities: wealth and social class, gender, race and ethnicity, religion, and of course also history and geography, which Tim alluded to in his closing points. And I think it is this topography of inequalities and our position in this topography that shapes our subjectivity. And think of subjectivity here as the way in which we perceive of the world around us, based on our experiences, and also as the resources we possess to interact with the social reality outside ourselves. And it is this subjectivity that shapes what we see, think, and say, how we express it. And let me give you a few examples for each of these inequalities and explore how they inform our position in the world and how they impact on the issue of free speech. Wealth and social class, for instance. It makes a difference whether you're born into a middle-class neighborhood in the southeast of the UK, which, unlike in Turkey, is the most prosperous part of the country, or in a council estate in a former industrial town in the UK's north. If the latter was the case, your educational career will have been shaped by not so good schools and less motivated teachers. The likelihood of you being accepted to an Oxford college will be close to zero. And you will speak with a local accent that is considered unsophisticated. And you might well lack the social capital and language abilities to explain your grievances clearly and effectively. So let's name a disadvantaged young man with that kind of history, Jack. And we'll come back to Jack. And compare his position of disadvantage to the experience of our hypothetical middle class kid. Let's assume he made it to Eton and studied at Oxford and knows all you need to know to get your ideas and concerns across to those who matter. And let's call him Sebastian, for instance. It's a Prussian name, of course. So when Jack and Sebastian meet, will they be able to talk on equal footing? If the two have to speak to the police or the media, who will be taken more seriously by those in power and by those who matter, Jack or Sebastian? Talk about gender. As a woman, if you do not have the privilege of being born into a middle-class family in Western Turkey, you will be at a disadvantage from the first steps of your education. You'll be socialized into subservient behavior towards your significant men. Fathers, uncles, husbands, policemen, judges. Your horizon for your job prospects and your place in the world will be severely limited. You are very likely to be subjected to violence from your childhood onwards. Society will expect you to be a good mother, who dedicates herself to her family and to the well-being of her husband. If you fail to achieve these, you will be considered a failure, or worse, a loose woman. If you comply, you will hardly ever be rewarded. With such a biography, will you be able to make your voice heard? Can you speak to your husband as two equal adults would do? Are you an equal participant in the public debate? The question. Now, race and ethnicity. Imagine you're born in Germany as a child of immigrants from Africa. You have been subjected to racial abuse from the first moment your mother brought you to the kindergarten. You never understood why people would look at you and laugh. In high school, your teachers would ask where you were from, and you wouldn't know what to say, as you've never been to the birthplace of your parents. So you would give the name of your German city of birth, and you would get a knowing look at the question, but where are you really from? You know, where are you really from? It's clear that you're not from Germany. Even though your German is not only impeccable, but also displays the local dialect, you would have understood that most Germans do not accept the idea that a black person can be German. Now think for a moment. If most people in Germany opine that your racial properties, i.e. being black, excludes you from being considered a proper German, from which position will you speak in a discussion of citizenship, for instance? Religion, which is of course very much at the heart of the free speech debate. And I'd like to give an example from France and then from Turkey. Being a Muslim in France obviously is not great fun. First of all, you have to deal with the socio-economic deprivation of many Muslims who are born into dismal social housing estates in the suburbs. But then you will always be approached with great measure of suspicion by the majority population. Your non-Muslim neighbors might suspect you of involvement in terrorist activities. If you're a young man wearing a hoodie in a banlieue, you will be strip searched by the police. If you are a woman wearing the hijab, the Muslim headscarf and so on, you will get the occasional stare or might be spitted at. And I've seen this happening, it does happen. If you're not a muhajjaba, a woman with a headscarf, your brother, your local gangmaster or the radical imam might do actually exactly the same. But even if you're well educated and middle class, you will have to explain yourself quite a lot for things you don't feel strongly attached to. Do you support suicide bombings? Are you for or against the cartoons about the Prophet Muhammad? Is the veil a sign of oppression of women? And why do Muslims eat halal meat? And in the end, you will have to make do in a public sphere where the President has declared the issue of halal meat as one of the key concerns of France and promised to ban it from schools. Considering all this, how will you feel? Empowered as a citizen of the French Republic? Or will you tire from having to explain yourself all the time?